a slumber party to bare their souls. Some people may have to leave early.
Just get it. Mine?
All the girls are coming.
I think your sweetheart's been taking too many diet pills.
Figure two.
Now it's time for the fun part.
One thing's for sure, no one's getting any sleep. Close your eyes for a second and sleep forever.
I'm not gonna eat the dead guy's pizza.
I feel better already. Really, I do.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare, from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on, and invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise, and at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Come on.
We decide on all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover. Patreon subscribers also get an on-air shout-out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which I did the math on. We are approaching 50 episodes now for bonus listeners, so if you haven't made the jump yet, that's awesome. How many episodes are waiting for you. And speaking of which, we did have 4 people make the jump this week, and they are Brent Gilmore.
Thank you, Brent.
Scott Boostrom, Fred Price, and Lars Mosij Norheim.
Cool.
I think I got that right, but he can let me know
awesome.
Otherwise.
Thank you, guys.
So, yeah, thanks to you guys for joining up and getting all those bonus episodes. Hope you're enjoying them. The other plug for the week, as always, iTunes. If you guys are listening on iTunes,
please.
Make sure to give us a good old rating and review over there. It helps us climb the rankings and find new listeners that way as well. But those are the plugs. Welcome. My name is Josh.
And I'm Jamie.
We
Welcome
are
back.
Your usual hosts here every week for you guys. I think 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you guys, free listeners, would have heard from us, and that would have seen us have guest Lance St. Laurent on to talk sort of like bad journalism noir adjacent films.
Those movies were wild.
We did Shot Corridor by Sam Fuller and Ace in the Hole by Billy Wilder, both very cynical and grim films about the media industry.
I had no idea they were doing that like in the 50s. Like,
yeah, Ace in the Hole, 53, yeah,
crazy.
Pretty nuts. Or maybe even 51.
I think it was 51.
Either way, if you haven't heard that episode again, 2 weeks ago, any podcast listener of choice, that was the free episode. But last week, finishing up our last episode of Noirvember, we did a Fritz Lang double feature of M, 1931, made before he fled the Nazis in Germany. Yeah. And then we did The Big Heat from 1953, which was
ruthless
kind of on the tail end of his Hollywood career. And either way, Fritz Lang, one of the most interesting filmmakers to come out of Germany, using all kinds of really grim subject matter
and I guess influential
and stark photography. Very influential.
Because M, right? That was like, he made basically the kind of aesthetic of noir and all that, right?
Yeah, for a lot of different, along with other filmmakers as well. But
sure.
yes, very influential film. Yeah, and that was, if you want that episode, that was last week's episode. That was patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. That was the bonus episode for you guys.
Check it out.
This week, we have a very special guest joining us. We have a freelance film writer for places such as Bitch Media and now the New York Times, and also host of the Bad Romance podcast. That is Jordan Searles. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I got a LaCroix. I'm good.
That feels correct for what you're about to bring with you, which, speaking of which, we have the guests bring the movies with them. So what 2 films have you brought with you this week, and why do they pair together?
Slumber Party Massacre and Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Yes.
Part of the only slasher trilogy made entirely by women. And also the 2 most fun ones. The 3rd one's kind of a bummer.
Didn't get to check that one out, so that's a bummer to hear, but...
I mean, it's still fun, but it's not as... Like, after 2, it's kind of like, you could have just stopped because it's so perfect.
Yeah, it's hard to get past what happens in 2, for sure.
But yes, they are both movies about a group of attractive young women who are harassed by a guy with a drill because it's a giant dick, I guess.
Yeah.
And you know, and also I think, yeah, the girl from the young girl from the first one is supposed to be older. One of the older girls in the second one, of course, is played by a completely different actress. Right. So that's really the only like actual character connection. And also, I guess they're two separate guys that like to kill teenage girls with drills.
Yeah, and one of which is cool. Like we'll get into it, but it's almost like it's almost supernatural in a way. You know, like with the second one, how he comes into reality. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, for sure. I think it's been noted pretty like bluntly that the first film Corman asked for a Halloween clone, and for the second film he asked for a Nightmare on Elm Street style thing. Oh, so okay. That was kind of that was kind of the thing. Is Corman would always give he would give a lot of directors freedom, but freedom in the sense of like the premise was there.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Here's what I'm going to sell this movie as. So you have to at least make it enough like this that I can sell it that way." And then after that, he was like, "Go nuts."
Well, that's amazing because I totally did get those Nightmare on Elm Street vibes from the second one, just with, as you know, the killer specifically, how he kind of works,
walks through literal nightmares, Freddy style. Yeah, very similar in that sense.
Even how we'll get to it. I'm just too excited.
But that being said, I think we are going to jump right into these. We are going to start here with the Slumber Party Massacre.
Let's do it.
For sure, no one's getting any sleep the night of the Slumber Party Massacre.
I love how dedicated, all of the movies, but especially the first one is, and just like having men sound completely ridiculous, because that's kind of how it opens. And I mean, this first one was written by Rita Mae Brown, and it was originally supposed to be a spoof of slashers, and you can kind of see the bones in there, but you know, the way that Amy Holden Jones directs it, it's like both the spoof and playing it straight at the same time, and it's very weird. But you can tell the spoof parts of it whenever the guys are talking.
Yeah, definitely. There's even like lines in when they have that very gratuitous scene in the shower after the gym, and they're saying lines that are like straight out of like a softcore porn or something, just like I think your boobs are getting bigger, Stacy, stuff like that, you know. So it seemed obvious to me that there was a bit of a satire with
they were playing around with the trends of slasher films.
Even though they're also pretty much putting it right in your face as well.
Yeah, I think Amy Holden Jones was on the record as saying that she kind of regrets a little bit of the shower scene now, because she was like, she thinks it was a little obvious. She was like, I really didn't need that pan up and down. But yeah, it's really, Amy Holden Jones is really interesting because she got started kind of, you know, making these sort of like independent student films. She did a short documentary called A Weekend Home that actually competed at the AFI Film Festival, and that was where she got noticed actually by Martin Scorsese. She ended up winning the prize, and Martin Scorsese was on the jury for that. And then years later, when she was like, I don't want to go back to school, I want to make films, she saw in the papers that Martin Scorsese was gearing up to make a new film. She called him and said, hey, I made that film that you liked that one time. Like, what do you think? Should I start making films or whatever? And he brought her on as assistant to the director for Taxi Driver.
Wow.
So she got to see beginning to end process of the making of Taxi Driver.
Wow, I had no idea. That's awesome.
And then Marty put her in touch with Roger Corman because, in his own words, he said, you are, hold on, where is it here? I have the exact thing. He said something along the lines of, she's too talented. She's too good to be an assistant. So she said that she should be doing something else.
That's great.
Called up Corman and said, hey, look, I've got a young filmmaker for you. And he's always on the hunt, because that was Scorsese got started with making Corman films, Dante, Jonathan Demme. A lot of these guys got started working for Corman. So she started editing films for Corman. She edited a Joe Dante film, I believe, his Hollywood Boulevard. And then eventually she was asked to edit, I kid you not, E.T. Steven Spielberg
Wow.
wanted her to edit E.T. and instead she decided that she likes editing films, but she never quite felt like she was putting her own stamp by editing other people's films. Like she was like, I can help make a film better, but it's not mine. It's someone else's film. So she turned down editing E.T. to make Slumber Party Massacre.
Okay.
Corman was like, I guess I'll let you
thank God that she did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she says she never regretted it. She was like, regardless of what people think about my film versus E.T., she was like, I made my film. I put my name out there.
Right. And so this like Slumber Party Massacre wasn't just like handed to her. Was this kind of something
she pulled a screenplay off the Corman wall?
Okay.
So apparently the screenplay had already existed for a couple years and it had been sitting there, and she pulled it off his shelf of screenplays and said, this is the one that appeals to me. She did like a small rewrite on it and then shot about 10 minutes of it and then sent it to Corman, and Corman was like, all right, here's the budget for the full thing.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So she kind of just took the initiative. She was just like, this is a screenplay that appeals to me.
Yeah.
And I see that it is a parody, but also she's just a really solid filmmaker. So when she approached it, she was like, you need to take some of these elements seriously, or it's not going to be scary.
For sure.
So you do get a kind of a unique meta effect where you're watching something that is, clearly intentionally funny.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you are shocked by, like a drill popping through someone's chest, like Xenomorph style, and like
having
viscera
eyes
on the blade of
gouged out,
it.
and it's crazy.
It's so Amy Holden Jones is so cool. Also, I want to point out that the cinematographer on Taxi Driver is her husband. Like they got married.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a really like well-known cinematographer. It's pretty cool. But yeah, there's something so like distinctly feminine about Slumber Party Massacre that I really, really love. Like the thing that really pops out to me is the younger sister reading Playgirl and like masturbating.
Yeah, it's saying it's her biology homework. It's just a classic good line.
The little sister is honestly best character.
Yeah, she's very funny in it.
She's really funny, but it's a funny movie that kind of like, I think it is subversive in a way, the way that it depicts men. I mean, you could also say it's similar to Black Christmas in that sense, where it's just the men are kind of useless. There's a great part in the beginning where one of them like body slams her boyfriend for walking up on him too fast.
Oh yeah, it is. It's like a full jujitsu move.
and then she tells him that he needs to learn how to fall better.
Yeah.
Which is so good.
Yeah, no, you're right in that. I would say that like it's interesting because it's a very short film, and there's also like no fat on it in any capacity. Like the killer is already knocking people off in the first like 3 minutes of the film. Basically.
And speaking of which, I really love her direction with like the scene where the two guys are walking after I believe they hit on the girl that was doing the construction or the lighting or something. And she gets pulled into the van, and in the background you can see her like pounding on the window for help, and then pulled down. It's just some really good direction with kind of like revealing the scares. Because then afterwards they go back and they walk past a dumpster, and they don't see her because of the angle that they're on, but the camera can see the body, and it's really good. I was surprised at some of the
she makes good use
shots.
of like the space of her frames and stuff like that, because especially when the van is kind of like taking up like the whole left side of the frame, and you're kind of wondering why it's such a huge presence, and then that hand just comes out of it, pulls her in, door slams. Like there's some really like effective horror filmmaking, and you can tell obviously that there's a little bit of Carpenter in, because that's a lot of stuff that Carpenter would do with his wide angle lensing and stuff like that.
There's a couple POV shots too.
Of him doing the breathing that he's doing. They even have the whole bit where he's just like the escaped mental patient
on the radio and everything.
It's very there's a lot of like sort of like Michael Myers visual sensibility to the way that she's taken it on here. But what's interesting and really interesting about this is a lot of the downtime. It's really just like it's a slumber party. It is a hangout movie where you're just kind of watching these people just have funny conversations, and half the time you're kind of like, this is just kind of funny comedy.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
real. Absolutely.
It just punctuated by these really, really like horrifying sequences in the middle there. And it reminded me a lot of what Deborah Hill tried to put into Halloween. And I think it did get into Halloween, but it's even more in there, which was she tried to take the language of like the conversations she had with other babysitters in the community. And she tried to fit that into the screenplay when they were making Halloween. And I feel like they did a lot of that here, and I have a feeling that Holden Jones on her rewrite must have really focused on some of those conversations that they were happening.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, they're just talking about how much of a hunk Sylvester Stallone is, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, that was my favorite part, seeing Stallone on the Playgirl magazine. I was like, yeah, Cobra.
I mean, he was really hot. Can we talk about one of the best comedic scenes? Not just of the Playgirl scene, very, very good, but also there's a part where a pizza guy dies and then Jackie puts the pizza over the dead body and then starts eating it.
Yeah, and then she says like, I feel better now, or something like that. Like there's a sense of relief now that she's at least not hungry, you know?
Well, and before she does that, genuinely one of the funniest lines in the movie is they approach the pizza guy and the one girl says, "Oh, ew, he's cold." And then she leans over and she goes, "Is the pizza cold or is it still warm? Is it still good to eat?"
That's so funny. Oh yeah, that was one of my
stuff
favorite
like that
jokes,
is when
for
you
sure.
can really tell that they're taking a bit of the piss on it a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Because they don't start to get like super serious until the killer is more revealed to everybody, right? Because like then they start like even the killer has kind of like this more serious tone to him when he starts to talk to them. Like he says stuff like, "I do this because I love you," or something like that. It takes a lot of love to do something like this, and it's not really connected too much with the rest of the film. I don't find like with his character and everything
they
else.
don't really try to psychologize
But it's still
him at
effective. It's
all.
just kind of creepy, you know. It adds a little bit of a creepy factor to it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about the killer in Black Christmas, even though we do never see him. Just like this weird, like, pervert id, and he's just explaining it, and it just sounds so... Like, it sounds, like, depressing and weird and strange, and he's just like, no, this is completely normal.
Yeah, this is love. This is purely from the heart.
Well, and especially because like we don't ever have him speak until that scene. Like the rest of
That's
it,
true,
he's
yeah.
only ever captured in this like.
And that's what at first I thought he was going to be. And it doesn't turn into much, but just I thought he was going to just be that, you know, voiceless killer, and that was it. More like Michael Myers.
Right. Well, because I mean, the first like full out like murder sequence that we get is the one that goes through the gymnasium.
Yeah.
And really they just established his cartoonishly huge drill. It's
Yeah,
it's so inconveniently massive. I'm like, there's no way this is the easiest way to get the job done.
Yeah.
But it's obviously very established in the visual language that it is a penetrating tool. It is definitely a phallic device. There's even one shot that it has it literally hanging between his legs as the girl is like screaming and staring at it.
Yeah, exactly. I also love that part just as a bit of like an effect is when like because he gets the girl and then in order for he's looking for her and it's very tense because you're not quite sure, and then I really do like the effect of the blood just slowly coming out of the door and it's just revealing where she is.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
her
it's
also
just
being
very-
smart enough to realize that that's happening and grabbing the towels and trying to like soak it up before it gets too far.
Yeah, that little moments like that were really, really good.
Yeah, it's interesting watching how, you know, because I do feel like watching it, I was like, clearly a woman has written this because she has all these girls like actually making decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the time you're
Just falling into the death kind of thing.
And with these ones, there's a lot of decision making happening, and sometimes it's still silly. Like I really love when the one girl goes into the garage and she's just like, I need a weapon. She's going through all the different, and for some reason there's a fucking machete in there. And I was like, what is the point of a household machete? But that's fine. I mean, obviously it's just a reference. I'm assuming it's a reference to Friday the 13th. 14th, but
Yeah, probably.
the best part is she grabs a buzzsaw, she plugs it in, she starts chasing him down because she's like, you know what, I'm gonna buzzsaw the shit out of this guy, and the extension cord doesn't go quite long
and
enough.
it's great too because it's filmed like it's this triumphant moment, like
Yes.
she's about to get this killer,
Yeah.
and then boom, slapstick humor like thrown at you.
She just
It's
gets
great.
flown back down the stairs.
Oh man, it's fantastic. And I just love that slow reveal for it too, because they don't quite show you the wire right away.
Yeah.
They do it at the last second, so it does add like a bit of a comedy effect.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's all kinds of like sly little jokes in here. I mean, there's one when he's trying to drill through the door in the gym, and there is the giant sign that says "emergency drill procedures," which I assume is about like gym, like, you know, in phys ed class
Yeah.
drills. And apparently, by the way, I was looking up some of the production behind it because I know that this was super cheaply made. It was made on like $150,000 or $200,000, something like nothing. They had no money to make this. And I saw that there was like a shot in the gymnasium where they were like somehow doing a crane shot, but without a crane. And I couldn't figure out how they did it. And apparently they used this thing called like a cherry top or something like that. And they just hung someone up there.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, all right, I guess.
That's cool.
Oh my god.
So yeah, Amy Holden Jones doing a lot of like guerrilla filmmaking as well while
Yeah.
making this. And again, it's really effectively made. I found the horror in this, like the use of slow motion and some of the makeup, especially when the drill is like going through people and you can see like the chunks of the makeup getting caught on the
spin
drill.
within a body is just so like
It's so messy.
Yeah, exactly. It gets right to your core.
Yeah. I did a screening of this at Alamo Draft House I think it was either this year or last year, and it was so interesting because everybody came in expecting to be laughing the entire time and then were surprised when it was actually a movie.
That's awesome.
Which happens every time I program something at Alamo Draft House. I programmed The Company of Wolves, and that was the weirdest. That was the weirdest night. None of those adults knew that they were watching an actual movie. Nobody Googles.
They just go for it. At the end, there was a really good moment when they're pretty much like it's the time where they're fighting back against the serial killer. And it's just a really awesome moment to watch, like, because all three of them start to fight him. I think Courtney's hiding underneath the couch, and then she trips him, and then the coach that's arrived earlier grabs the fire poker and just starts like beating the shit out of him with it, which I was a little frustrated with because I was just like, poke him, get it done. but it's a really effective scene. I liked it.
The coach also gets one of my favorite fake outs in the movie because there's quite a few fake outs in the movie. But the best one is when the coach is coming home and all of a sudden a drill starts coming at her face through her door. And she's like, whoa. And then the door opens and the guy's like, hey, just installing your peephole.
Yeah.
And he leaves. He doesn't finish. He just put the drill of the hole in and then just leaves.
That's so funny.
And I was like, all right, man. There's all kinds of like, you know, funny little details about this. I like when they're partying that it's just Kool-Aid, weed, and Pringles.
That's how you party, man.
That's
Come on
an
now.
amazing party. Yeah, it's such a great party. Everyone is so fun. Everyone is hot, but in like a way that appeals to me. And I liked, and this is the only one with the black woman in it, but the fact that Jackie is here is great, not just for like regular representation, but as in like she is what I would be at this sleepover.
Well, I mean, she's the one who gets the pizza joke, which is the best joke in the entire movie.
Without a doubt. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I was so sad when she died. It's just like, no, but she's great. The little sister is also great, especially because like a lot of why she wants to go over there is because she's like, oh, that's where the boys are going to be. Like, I want to go. The protagonist is probably the least interesting person, which makes sense because she's new in school or something. She doesn't fit in for some reason, even though they're all like conventionally attractive and like,
everyone's like, wow, she's so hot. Let's pick on her.
Yeah, it was an odd thing. It was they just went with the new girl thing, I guess. It was a bit odd, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely were trying to get a little bit of like a Carrie type thing going on, but it just they didn't have the character of Carrie,
Yeah,
who has
exactly.
very explicit like different experiences that then they do.
Yeah.
It's just you're hanging out with all the cool girls in the Carrie universe.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of like something that did surprise me with all the kind of the satirical elements of this film is the ending, which is pretty much straight up like traumatizing. You know, it's just she kills the serial killer, and then she just screams until the credits roll, and you're like, well, you know that's just everlasting trauma right there. You know, and it's just interesting
I love that about it. I love that it ends at that note, not just for dramatic purposes, but also because if you're killing someone, even if they're trying to kill you, killing someone is fucking traumatizing.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes it's like this weird, like triumphant thing in movies. And I'm just like, but wait, process what just happened.
Right. And I was surprised at that just because of the film we were watching. I didn't think it was going to get to like this deep-seated traumatic thing where she's actually been affected by killing the killer. That was very cool.
Right. No, I think that's a really good point. It's a good point about both these films because I think that in Rita Mae Brown's screenplay that there's something there about her just taking the female experiences of slashers like seriously, like making a parody out of the way that they're sometimes abused in slashers.
Yeah.
But still taking that experience seriously. And I wanted to shout out that Willow Caitlin McClay had an awesome article that came out recently in Movie Notebook where she and I'll link to it in the show notes, where she did her case for the entire trilogy of Slumber Party Massacre films. And one note that she highlighted in particular was the idea of obviously, you know, there are problematic elements to the slasher, and that it kind of became a more... It was interesting that when it kind of rose up, it actually did have a lot of women being a popular demographic for the genre, especially when it became rentable and stuff like that, because it asked, you know, maybe the teenage boy audience it was made for to identify with a final girl, which is obviously like kind of like a huge part of Men, Women, and Chainsaws. That book, Carol J. Clover actually kind of like established that theory of thought on it. But Willow made a good point about this one where she said that, if there's something to be reclaimed in the slasher films, that Slumber Party Massacre films do it especially, is because, you know, while boys went on adventures like Back to the Future or Stand By Me, women survived. That the identifying role that you had in a slasher was a lot of the time this girl who was just inflicted with violence by men. And that was pretty much like what every slasher was boiled down to. Yeah. So I think it's interesting that, you know, even though this has spoof elements, it doesn't not take that aspect of it seriously, that this is like really horrifying violence being done. Absolutely. I mean, even the girl that they make fun of throughout the film, because she's kind of like the horny one, she's the one always on the phone with the boys and stuff like that. And she talks about, I think our First Amendment rights have been violated because they're listening in on the phone calls. Like she's a bit silly, and
she's the one with the boyfriend that gets his head cut off, right? Which is an effective scare.
Well, that's what I mean, is that the movie, like the other girls make fun of her. Yeah. But it still takes her experience really seriously when she goes back into that garage and finds her boyfriend and she reaches out to him and his head just falls off. Yeah. And she's also the one that gets the death where the drill is coming through his legs and everything too. Yeah. So like it's very specifically.
And they take the even like the relationship with the girls seriously too, because there's like that kind of passive aggressive scene where she goes in to ask if she can like go with her boyfriend, and then she says something like, "You don't need my permission, Diane," but you can tell that there's some friction there, you know, and that I enjoyed too. Like they really do elaborate on the relationships more than I thought they would.
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to be gossiping about boys and eating lollipops. Like you're ditching us to go have sex in the car. All right. But yeah, I think that both of these movies really do take the violence very seriously, which is kind of like the reason that they kind of work. Yeah. Because if they didn't, I would feel like you would just kind of laugh these off a little bit.
Definitely.
But I feel like that mix of you have a little bit of that comic energy, it kind of disarms you a little bit for then watching something as horrifying as it gets. I mean, Willow also pointed out
with the characters easily too.
Yeah. I mean, Willow pointed out in her article, and it was a note that I took too, which is why I took this note and then I read her article and she had the same note. That shot where the killer comes in through the window is one of the scariest things that I actually have seen this year.
Yeah.
Because the drill enters the frame first and it's in the background. And, credit to Holden Jones, who really shoots this well. The drill starts sneaking in as they're talking, they're scared. They're talking about, I think, calling someone or something. Or that's after they cut the phone line. They're talking about, like, what they're going to do. And he just slowly walks in through the window, like one leg at a time. He's walking kind of like inhumanly. Apparently, an interview with the actor, he said that he modeled his movements after a peacock. I was like, all right.
Oh my God.
Kind of a unique decision, but it's really creepy.
It worked out.
Yeah. And it's very similar to the way that Bob moves in Twin Peaks. Now, Jamie, I know you haven't seen Twin Peaks, but Jourdain, have you seen Twin Peaks?
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, so like you know the shot where the really famous shot from Twin Peaks where Bob comes over top of the couch towards crap, I'm already blanking on the main girl's name already. But you know the shot that I'm talking about? It's the really famous one where and Bob is supposed to be sort of like this almost cosmic allegory for abuse and sexual violence and stuff like that in the series. And she kind of replicates that, and it was like 10 years before David Lynch did it. So I was like, all right, so here's the visual language for that scene happening right here.
Yeah.
And as he just gets closer and closer, it's so freaking creepy. And then that's when the real violence of they have to start fighting back because he's made his way inside. It also helps that he's doing like I'm pretty sure he's rocking the Canadian tuxedo, right? He's got the double denim thing going on.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he does. Yes, when you say Canadian tuxedo, I completely forgot what that was, and now that's amazing. Yes, that's exactly what he's rocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I described it as Abel Ferrara's The Driller Killer for denim jacket girls. That's what the film ultimately felt like to me. And the fact that, I mean, like, there's comparison points for this for like films that I already love. I mean, things like Twin Peaks, but also it's very clear that Brian De Palma straight up stole this for Body Double.
Oh, yeah. Because I
haven't seen Body Double. Should I?
Yeah, there's this great shot where someone gets drilled actually through, and they're on the second floor, and you see the drill go through the ceiling from a character beneath the floor.
And the blood starts pouring through.
Yeah, and the blood
and
starts going through, and it's very reminiscent of a bunch of kills that we've seen in this movie. So
yeah, but specifically the shot of the drill going through his legs, like that was ripped, and the shot that they include on the poster and everything, like that. De Palma straight up just stole the idea of the drill as that penetrating tool in that sequence as well.
Yeah,
and I mean even then he has a guy. A white guy who's like dressed up as like a Native American caricature drilling people and stuff.
The movie's insane.
Body Double's kind of an insane movie just in general. It's like this it's like Vertigo made by like the sleaziest person alive.
Yeah.
And clearly a guy whose reference points are things like Slumber Party Massacre.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Wow, you're really hyping this up. I need to watch this Body Double.
Yeah, it's really good. We covered it on the show actually.
Yeah, we really liked that one. Even though it's kind of like a more disrespected De Palma one, I think.
Oh yeah,
just because it's so gross.
Yeah, exactly.
It's disgusting.
So the second one.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we are gonna enter. Yeah. I think we do the reductive rating round here, which for you, Jourdain, is we remove all the words, all the nuance, and we reduce the movie between a number between 1 and 5, but it's also become like closing statements. So if you have anything we didn't end up hitting a line or a scene or anything like that, you can do it here. But for me, Slumber Party Massacre, the first one here, absolute solid 4 for me, for every reason that we basically already went over. I don't think we need to do it all again, but it's just like very, very vicious kills and very effective horror directing from A.B. Holden Jones, mixed in with like this weird comic manic energy sometimes that gets into the film. One of my favorite things I wanted to bring up before I finished was one of my absolute favorite shots in the film. And it's also a joke, and it's also so gross that it's still scary, even though it's a joke. It's because it's physical comedy. When Valerie and Courtney, the sisters, get to the place and they're looking around for all the girls and they can't find them. And Courtney wants to go over and be part of the party because she wants to be part of the cool girls. She wants to drink alcohol. She goes to the fridge. She opens the fridge up.
Oh yeah,
a body
That's
of
a
one of the
great
girls
shot.
slides.
Oh
out-
my God! Yes,
It slides
That's
out
a
of the
great shot.
fridge, but Courtney doesn't see it. She's still talking to Valerie, who's like,
Right.
"Hey, don't you grab that
And they
beer
do
in
it
there?"
twice.
And so she's like, "Fine." So she closes it, and then she's
Yeah.
like, "Do you know what? I'm going to open it again." And it comes out again, and then she closes it again, and it's a third time that she comes back to
then
it.
she
And
finally sees
the
thing
body
drop.
full out collapses.
And
And,
what's-
and by the way, that actress really did that. She just sucked it up and sat in that fridge like
Wow.
there was nothing else there.
Yeah, because I was
she
going to
just
say that
flopped
effect
around.
looked amazing. And then also, I love, they even add a bit of comedy to it too. Like, I mean, I guess there is already some satire elements to that scene and its tone. But then when the older sister goes back to see what she's screaming at, then she sees the body and
Yeah.
then does a scream and then runs. It's very, like, it is very comedic. It's funny, but also horrifying.
Yeah, like that stuff's really good. And same with Amy
I'm
Holden
mad
Jones.
I forgot to even mention that.
Well,
part,
yeah, because I was just thinking
that's
a couple effective horror scenes. Also, the one where she does the cross cutting between Valerie watching the TV and the guy being slaughtered on her lawn out front.
Yes.
And it cuts between her watching the horror movie where someone's being stabbed, and it actually cuts between them so fast and copies the visual language from what she's watching that like it'll be the guy on TV bringing the knife down, and then it'll be a shot of like the kid being stabbed outside, and
then
it cuts between them so fast that you just combine the two.
And then I love the cherry on top, which is after like the both killings within the show and then within the real reality death happens. They do the newspaper scroll where it like goes up in the thing, and they're like, the killer strikes again. So they just have to almost like, end it on a comedic note a little bit, even though what you watched was pretty horrific and well done. Yeah, it's great. I'm gonna give it a 4 as well. I was going into it thinking it was gonna just be like pure satire in a way.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to see that the horror elements when she goes for them are really well done and well executed. So yeah, I'll give it a solid 4.
For you, Jordan.
Yeah, I also give it a 4. I'm not a rating person, but yeah, sure. Yep, that works.
Perfect.
All right.
Because I mean, it is one of the it's an interesting thing where I, like, my partner and a lot of my friends don't watch slashers, but this movie and the one that we're about to talk about were the ones that kind of got them to really look into them, and they also like cause people to question whether or not these are inherently misogynist movies, which I don't think that they are.
Right.
So yeah, I think that it's a really, really under discussed film in terms of canon and in terms of programming, and I really hope that changes pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be totally worth it just to get an audience of people reacting to the final killer's castration via fireplace poker, where they snap his drill in half, and he's like, "What?"
Just devastated. Yeah.
And then
An amazing scene.
they shove him into the pool while he basically gets to do the scream that usually is reserved for the female victims.
Yeah.
And then obviously he's still got to come back and still inflict more trauma, which, by the way, will segue us perfectly into Slumber Party Massacre 2, which really does just tackle
like the whole thing, basically.
Yeah.
She just sees coming back.
Yep.
In more ways than one.
It's just reliving the trauma of the literal events of Slumber Party Massacre. So
Yeah. It's great.
That's what we're going to be talking about next, coming up.
Sweet.
Bastard! You killed Valerie!
Because let's burn.
Slumber Party Massacre 2. If you go, don't go all the way.
God, anybody got any tranks?
All right. We are back, and we are talking Slumber Party Massacre 2. 5 years after the original Slumber Party Massacre 1987, it is obviously another slasher film in this franchise, or I guess this trilogy of films, and this one written and directed by a different woman by the name of Deborah Brock, but still produced by Roger Corman. Obviously, it is loosely a sequel to Slumber Party Massacre. Technically, it does have direct continuity with the fact that it is supposed to follow Courtney, who you might remember from Slumber Party Massacre is the girl who opens the fridge and finds the corpse in the fridge. She is Valerie, the main character from the first film's younger sister, and she is living with the trauma of finding all of those young girls' bodies all massacred to pieces.
Yeah.
And
that's
something basically the premise. That's just kind of it.
Yeah.
It's her psychological experience of that.
It's kind of if that girl from Clerks, like if we made another movie about her, like after she fucked that dead guy. Which I would love that movie. I know that Kevin Smith would never make it.
Kevin, what are you doing? We'll get a Kickstarter going.
Deborah Brock, also interestingly, I looked at her filmography to see if she did any other movies related to music, because this is a music-heavy film, and she did the Rock and Roll High School sequel, Rock and Roll High School Forever.
Awesome. Have you seen that by chance?
No, I saw the first one, of course, and I just thought the first one is really crazy. They destroy that school, so I don't know how they could top the second one.
That's awesome.
But yes, I showed Slumber Party Massacre 2 as part of my lineup of birthday movies for my 27th birthday this year. Like I first did Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2, which is also one of my faves. Also
something we have to hit up on this show at some point.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, no, I will come back to talk about Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2.
Hell yeah.
I love that movie so much. So that and then this one. And Slumber Party Massacre 2, I showed it to all of my friends who are not horror people. I have never gotten a better reaction for showing a movie at my home. It was like a thing where if people left the room, they wanted me to pause it because they didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah.
Also somehow, so this killer, this time it's a driller killer, but it's like a rockabilly driller killer.
Yes, it is.
And he's got the drill on the end of his guitar. And it was great because we were obsessively looking at him, trying to figure out what he looks like, and everyone at my party decided to start calling him Pete Wentz. So now I think of him as Pete Wentz.
For sure.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I love how this movie, because we were talking about how the last movie ended on the trauma, essentially, right? And then it cuts to credits. And I like how they took that and just made this whole movie that, basically. Because even from the very beginning, we have Courtney's character having these really, aggressive and violent dreams about the killer. Or
these vivid premonitions of things
and also,
to come.
I guess, flashbacks, too, I think, doesn't she?
Yeah, in the first one, it's actual imagery from the first Slumber Party Massacre film.
Right.
How she found all these corpses. And it's done in that kind of, fractured editing style we briefly mentioned of, that sequence where it's cutting between the TV and the murder at the same time.
Yeah.
Her dreams have this very almost dreamy, abstract quality to them that show,
very Inception-y.
Yeah, bubbling blood and these fisheye lens shots of a neon lit hallway.
And multiple times I think she wakes up twice. She has dreams within dreams, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's Courtney living with the lingering trauma of the violence of the first film, and for some reason that has taken shape in a rockabilly Freddy Krueger. Who is just, for some reason, he's really stoked to have a hit song and also take out this wannabe MTV girl group with all their pastel aesthetics and
this is
great
amazing.
garage jamming and
this. Okay, so number one, this girl group, amazing. I wish there was an accompanying album. I love them.
Sure.
They're the most extra, the most rock and roll dudes. It's what if the Runaways had a lot of fun?
Yeah. And like I love the cuts to when they'll have little moments in the song where, you know, like I think the blonde drummer, she has like a drum roll part and it'll close up on her face and she seems so happy just hitting that snare like over and over again. There's just such like an upbeat attitude to every time they are together and every time that they're creating music or just performing it. They're
going to be
just
famous,
fun to watch.
man. They're going to be movie stars.
Exactly. And then I think it's the same. I can't remember the drummer's name. Do you know the name, Jordan?
No, I don't know the drummer's name.
But I know that she's like she I found every character to have these like just really fun quirks that you could attach to. Like the drummer was trying to write a hit song at one point, so you see her on the couch like writing these like, you know, kind of cutesy lyrics, and it's I don't know, there's just a good personality to it. It's very fun and upbeat when it is kind of fun and upbeat even when the killing is happening.
Well, I was going to say,
the thing is that like this killer is like performing for them as he kills them, which I think is really fantastic. It's almost like the entire movie moves into a dreamlike space and he's performing, he's killing, he's like narrating as he stalks them, and it's so it's so transformative. Like the first time I saw it, I was in awe because I was kind of just like, if I was going to be murdered in a movie like this, I would want to be murdered by him.
This is it. Yeah, I want
the guy.
I want to hear that musical number and then stab with that guitar trill because that's the way to go, baby.
He earns that kill for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're not even mad. You know, you're like, damn, that was a good number.
I was like, that is a way more understandable like perversion to have. Than whatever the first guy was doing.
Whatever the first guy was doing, yeah.
But it's
I also love that he only talks in like old 60s and 70s rock and roll lyrics, like a lot of the time anyway. Yeah. He has a couple moments where he just talks to them, but a lot of the time he's saying stuff like, I just can't get no satisfaction and stuff like that. And it's man, so good. It makes my rock and roll heart so happy.
He's so amazing, and like,
and he's in nothing else apparently, unless I'm mistaken.
No, he did nothing else.
I couldn't believe it.
He was
I'm like,
the driller killer.
This guy's electric. Like I was like, oh my god.
This guy is a star. He's really, really good. And the way that he intrudes on them, like I really love the setting. Like the house is about to be sold, which I think that's like a good tidbit because it's like you're about to sell this house and you're having a slumber party. Of course, you're gonna trash this house, and now they're getting like stalked by a guy. But I love the part, like the little stuff, like when there's a spill and then they're trying to figure out the best way to get the spill out of the carpet. That's so good because it's like, once again, like it's not just like a slumber party as like a setting. Like what they're doing makes sense. Like they're ridiculous in a lot of ways, but they're having a real slumber party. They're having real conversations, and all of the girls like have their own personalities.
Yeah. Well, one thing I really appreciated about this one in comparison to the first was that the structure of it is that the first kill, like the first on-screen kill that's not a dream,
right,
is in like the last 15 minutes of the movie. Like it takes forever to get there, but you don't actually notice it because you're having fun as just like this like really ridiculous like teen sex comedy basically. And it's punctuated by these nightmare sequences that she's having that are kind of like ripping through the fabric of the sex comedy because like obviously, you know, like there's a bit, for example, where she goes to like they're having a barbecue by the pool. She goes to eat the burger and there's just a severed hand instead of a burger, and she gets this iconic delivery of this line where she's just like, my burger is weird.
I also love the one guy gets this funny line after too, where he's like, well, you did put too much ketchup on it because before that, it just works so well because before we see all this blood and this severed hand on the burger. Speaking of which, that TJ character, at first I have to say, and he is like, he's supposed to be a very annoying, obnoxious character, but at first I was just pretty much purely annoyed by him, but as the movie goes, I almost loved how obnoxious he was. I don't know about you, but some of his really really annoying jokes started to actually land for me as it went on, because it seemed so over the top just with how much of an asshole he was.
Well, I really liked when they started performing for them in the condo.
Oh, yeah.
And he just got so into it. He was so psyched. Like, he became like their hype man for like a second. But I gotta say, like, the hanging out in this is the majority of it, and it's like them kind of like at one point they're drinking champagne and eating cheese whiz out of the aerosol can or whatever it is.
That's classy moves.
And I mean, even one thing too that's there's a bit of a subplot about a girl getting a pimple that she's not psyched about.
Ooh,
and then that turns into a
something.
horror sequence where it's a giant zit and it's like popping just
I was
like
shocked
pus
at that
everywhere.
Because that was like before it was that was more of like a gross out thing horror, right? Whereas everything else in these movies is pretty much just the traditional slasher horror kind of stuff, like, you know, someone being stabbed or whatever the case is, decapitated. But to watch this pulsating pimple just grow and grow
Oh
and
my
grow
God,
until
the makeup in that is so amazing.
It's incredible. I couldn't even believe it. And then it just pops all over Courtney. And you're like, I was legitimately
Courtney's
grossed
just
out.
having bad vibes the whole time. Like, everyone's just
she's
having a
not
good
having
time.
fun.
Like, a lot of the time the girls are just like, there's one part that I was amazed where it's a minute and a half and it's just the girls driving and singing along to the radio. Nothing else happens in the scene. They're just singing to the radio for like a minute and a half, just stoked, having a great time. And then Courtney just keeps having that infected by the reality of like the last time something like this happened, all of those girls were butchered. And by the time you reach the kind of like the end of the film, you don't really actually know if any of this happened or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we watched, like, and most of the time with that kind of twist where it was like, it was all a dream. You know, she's actually in a mental hospital, that kind of thing or whatever. It usually doesn't work, but for some reason, I think with the setup from the first one, and then this one really slowly bringing that to you, because it's only revealed that he kind of comes into reality out of their dream in the last like 20 minutes or something.
Well, yeah,
like
because no one is seeing anything that she is seeing. She's seeing all these horrible things like the zit, like the burger. At one point, she's just attacked by a raw chicken.
Yeah. So many little amazing things that I'm forgetting about.
Which actually reminded me of the bit from Dead Heat where they reanimate the
absolutely
the Chinese food restaurant a little bit for a second there.
First the giant like cow or whatever it is.
And then she has this fantasy about like this sort of like this shirtless football dude who she's invited to come over and hang out with them, but every time she keeps getting romantic with him, he immediately turns into the rockabilly Freddy Krueger, who, by the way, they intentionally, or at one point they wanted to have them played by the same actor. So that it would just like change his outfit.
God.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah, so that but I don't know if the guy just couldn't do like the
dancing and all that stuff.
Well, I don't know.
It does take like a charisma for sure. Like that guy's moves are pretty smooth. With
I guess neither guy could do both parts, so they were kind of like, I guess we got to pick one. But that was the idea, was that they were gonna have like this girl, this romantic image of this guy that she's interested in, and then all of a sudden it transitions into just this. Again, a rockabilly murderer.
Yep.
He's leather clad. He breakdances sometimes because he's getting so stoked.
Yeah, and I love
his moves. He has such great moves. He's so talented. He becomes just like the centerpiece. And I also feel like the way that he stalks and kills them at the end, and the whole chase and everything, feels like a seduction. It's like he's like trying to instead of it's like he. It's like romancing them.
Yeah, because he even plays with them a little bit, right? Like he doesn't just kill them. He chases them. He appears out of nowhere with a cigarette and just says something smooth and then lets them run away again. Like you can tell that he's completely in control when he gets into the reality.
Well, and also, a lot of the songs that he's singing, I wouldn't go as far as say that they're love songs, but they are songs about like expressing his feelings and stuff like that.
I also love how she films it like an MTV music video when he starts his performance before the kill. Everything changes. Like the camera angles are now different, and the lighting changes to like these pinks and greens.
Well, yeah, because before that scene, it's just a lot of him kind of like jumping out and like doing a quick shred saying a funny line. fine, and then like something scary happens,
Right.
and like that's kind of it. And I mean, it's interesting. They do kind of up the pastel colors in general and stuff like this, so that it kind of has a whole MTV vibe for like a lot of the film. But that musical number is the sequence, where he's just like he straight up addresses the camera, and he's like, now it's time to, I forget exactly what he says. It's like, now it's time to get to work or something like that.
Yeah.
Now's the fun part or something.
Yeah,
and that's when he puts the sunglasses on, he lights the cigarette, he jumps into the song, and it's a full out like 3-minute long sequence of him performing this song.
Yeah. And at the end of the song, he does to start the drill, because he actually has to start the drill with the guitar, which is awesome. Yeah. and then he goes, "Let's buzz," and then starts drilling. Oh man, it's endless. It's endless fun for such a
but it's awesome too, because in the
sequences.
same way that the first one did, how it has that sense of like, it has this comic energy to it,
Yeah.
but it never also lets you forget the horror of it, because while he's doing these dance moves and he's grooving around, he's thrusting his hips, he's got like an Elvis thing going on as he's like moving through the halls
for sure.
And then but it's shots of him doing that, and then it's this really distorted fisheye lens looking at her screaming, trying to pull the door open, with the drill kind of like in the foreground of the shot, going like back and forth and stuff like this, like a POV shot from his perspective. And it's just really creepy. Like she's not laughing, we're laughing as audience members because it's so ridiculous, but like all of the girls are just in a normal slasher film to them during that sequence, which is like a really good touch. It actually makes it more effective, especially when he puts the drill through people. And I found the gore effects of the drill going through people in this one were even crazier.
Yeah,
like the amount of
they'll
chunks.
show like a full body with the drill inside, and
The
it's
drill's
like
just
spinning.
even bigger.
Yeah, that too. It's you thought the first one was huge. Now we have a full guitar. It's just craziness.
Yeah.
I also love the sequence. And it's actually what results in them not being saved by the police, which is when the cops come, because they think, I think it was Sally, she is killed or she disappears, so they think that something's happening, especially because Courtney is freaking out and seeing these visions and whatever. And the scene with the cop is pretty funny, like, and they break the fourth wall with that too. Like, she films it like the cop is almost sternly talking to you, the audience member, and it just adds a bit of a comedic effect. It's really good. And then later on, they try to call the cops, and because of that part, they're just like, no, we're not coming.
Or whatever. Yeah.
We're just not going to show up.
The cops are so useless in this movie.
That's what I'm saying.
I was trying to. It's so interesting. I love how slasher movies point out how useless cops are. This and Black Christmas, which I just love Black Christmas. I'm going to keep talking about it.
Yeah, we actually programmed Black Christmas to play at our theater next month for our Christmas Retromania, so we're stoked to play it.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it's so interesting because it's weird cops in this movie where these women they call and they're terrified, and the cops are just like, this must be a joke. And maybe it's just because I was very young in the 90s, but I never could understand why anyone would call the cops as a joke. Like, it's so weird. I just thought maybe it's like white culture. Do white people do that? I could not imagine.
I can't think of a single time I've ever thought, you know what? It's Thursday night. I'm going to crack a cold one open with my homies, and we're going to call the cops.
I can't believe I get to tell this brief story, but when I was younger, me and my cousin were at a payphone at a hockey arena, and they two cops came up to us and were like, "Were you boys calling the cops?" Like as a prank. So not we weren't, but apparently some kids in the hockey arena were calling the police and just hanging up and then running away. And we happened to be at the payphone at the time. So it was a scary moment at the time, but yeah, I can't believe that just popped up.
Amazing.
So maybe it is in the culture. Oh man.
Yeah. I mean, the big finale gets just super crazy because, again, her nightmare dream sequences that she's been having through the whole film just all of a sudden infect the entire movie. And what once was like a bunch of people just kind of like having fun very quickly becomes to sort of us having fun while the killer having a lot of fun.
Yeah. The killer really gets to have the most fun in this movie, for sure.
I did think it was funny because the bit where they do the gratuitous nudity in this one is so cartoonish. Like, it's even more so than the first one.
I love
and the characters even comment on it. They were like...
They start doing that pillow fight.
Yeah.
And And the one guy's
And they
like,
even
I
just
didn't know girls actually did this.
I loved that line because it was just such a nod to be like, this is obviously, satirical.
Well, yeah, and then
all
the
that
other
is
guy's
great.
like, I don't think they do. We're in
think-
heaven.
I think we died and went to heaven.
I just love this idea. Like, maybe it's just because I have big boobs. This idea of just like leisurely taking off your bra to partake in an activity and then putting it back on.
I think at one point, two of them even start snapping their bras at each other. Like they're pillow fighting with their bras instead.
It is
man.
the wildest thing. I could not imagine. Like, I kept on wondering, are their bras okay? Where are their bras? How are they comfortable like this? Are they going to make out?
Yeah.
It's so many questions.
No, not and that's shortly after the cheese whiz and champagne.
Yeah,
So you're kind of
very
like,
shortly.
what kind of party is this? This is the weirdest party I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then the neighbor just like, you be easy on that Maui Wowie.
Yeah. I also like too that when one of the couples dies and the neighbor hears it, he's just like, "You damn kids," because it just sounds like the sex noises.
Yeah.
Also, there's the bit where she's reading the dirty novel, which I thought was super fucking funny.
Oh yeah,
because
what do you remember the title of it?
oh no, I can't.
I don't think I wrote it down.
I can't remember.
It was very funny.
it was Hot, Wet, and Wild.
Yeah, right.
Was the name, which is just come on. But at one point, the guy's reading it, and he reads the line from it. His pulsating tool drove deep into her confines.
Yeah.
Which
Is
again,
that when he's trying to turn on his girlfriend?
yeah. He's like, "How about now? Are you ready? You ready to go now?"
Now?
No, instead that's
Does
when
another
that's when they
paragraph.
do the practice for MTV, because that's where they're headed, and that's also right before
right.
the offending bird, the chicken, starts attacking her from outside the fridge. It's also where they replicate the Nightmare on Elm Street bit in the bathtub, but instead of having the hand come out, it's just blood just starts flowing through the tub, and it kind of comes out. That leads into
that was really great. I liked that a lot.
I miss, when I watch these movies, I think about in a macro sense how much I miss fun slasher movies. And I thought about it when I saw the new Halloween, which I do not like.
We're fans.
It was, well, it's just like the new Halloween, the big thing is it's about trauma and dealing with trauma. And that's really interesting. And I will say the final stretch of the new Halloween is great, but it's the only part of the movie that I like. I like the idea of dealing with trauma in a way that does not have to be this huge, constantly somber affair.
I feel that.
Because trauma is a thing that it intrudes on your daily life, and of course it shows up when you're trying to have fun. So I guess the thing about Slumber Party Massacre, it's you're alone with your friends, you're not with your family, and you're kind of alone with your thoughts and who you are. And of course that's the time when whatever's really bothering you is going to come get you, kind of like when you're young and you go to the sleepover and you're worried that you're going to pee your pants. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, just instead it's like a leather-clad rockabilly slasher guy.
Yeah,
every time
you.
you're about to start making out with someone and he's just like, "What's
I'm
up?
here. Let's rock."
Yeah, let's have a good time. Let's have our own good time. I did think it was funny that the TJ guy, to me, he just always sounded like a Bill and Ted character.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think that's why I eventually started to. I didn't like his character because he's supposed to be obnoxious, but as he goes, it's his just over the top, rude, just loudmouth personality really fit with as what the film was doing. So it ended up being really effective for me.
And I like what Jordan's saying there about this idea of it's still taking trauma seriously, but not in just this very serious, somber
all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think it really works effectively, in the scene where the guy finally comes over, she's in her room with him, and when the killer takes his place and then also kills him, I think.
Yeah.
Because He
And
drills.
that's where the film really just goes, what is this?
He
what are we
drills
doing
through
here?
his chest, and
In the
there's
sense of
chunks
reality.
getting all over the drill from his chest. And then he also rips the guy's arm off, and like you can see like the tendons like ripping and like it ripping like messily and stuff like that. And then he takes it and he throws the like this dismembered arm onto her birthday cake because it's her birthday. And just that shot of
Good
just
Lord.
this dismembered arm, it's blood everywhere, and then there's like this turquoise like pastel looking cake that's so nice, and they're trying to have a good time celebrating her birthday, and then that arm just like smashes right on top of it. Like, you can't get more overt than like you trying to have a good time and it's coming up and your traumas are hitting you at very inconvenient moments.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I can't believe how good this film is. And it's underrated as hell.
Yeah, people don't seem to like it that much.
No, I was surprised. I mean, there's still like on Letterboxd, it was like between the 2 and the 3 kind of thing. But it's so much fun. I'm just shocked. I'm very surprised.
It's so good. It's so well crafted. It's so fun, well paced. Like, it's the kind of thing, like, I remember when going to see a new horror movie was an event, and like this would be an event instead of just like, I don't know which creepy child is going to do this in this movie today. Like, this is like a full experience where all of the characters, like, they actually mean something to the plot. It's all part of the full story. I love how taut these movies are because they're both the first and the second one are both like 75 minutes. And like this one is like double the budget of the other one, but it's still like a low budget and everything is utilized. There's no like dead air.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, yeah, because that stretch where it kicks it off with the musical number. Again, a musical number in a slasher, just insane. But then that whole sequence where he's chasing them around and they're like running on the rooftops. One of my favorite shot in the entire movie.
On the rooftop, like it's just.
That's my favorite shot in the
style.
entire movie where they think that they've kind of like escaped him. They're running from one roof to the other, and it holds on this wide shot. And as they jump from one roof to the other, their bodies were blocking him on the roof in the background, and then he starts laughing maniacally and just shredding
As he's smoking a cigarette too. Like, it's such a cool image. I love this guy.
Like, it absolutely doesn't make any sense, which is kind of like why it really works, and which really sends home like the actual final images of the film where, again, she thinks that was all a nightmare. She wakes up and she's back with the boyfriend where she was before like he killed her and threw the arm on the birthday cake and everything like that. And then he comes out of that and infects that dream. And then she's in a mental hospital. And then this is the craziest part. When she's in the mental hospital, she's imagining it. And then the drill starts powering through the floor of the hospital.
And then she screams and it just ends. So for me, it implied that she's going to just constantly wake up in this nightmare
6 layers
for the rest of her life. And I'm just like, that's fucking horrifying. I can't believe they pulled this ending off. And it really works just because before that, they have him kind of just appear a lot of the time. You know, like his physical space makes no sense. Like, he's on the roof, and then all of a sudden he's right beside them, and then all of a sudden he's behind them. And so it's obvious that I think at a certain point, they're just kind of giving you the answer where they're like, yeah, this is kind of a dream within a dream within a dream. And she's just living through trauma constantly, and she can't escape it.
It reminded me a lot of the thing that De Palma does near the end of Carrie. Where they have this like picture perfect thing where the girl goes up to Carrie's where Carrie has pulled the house down and she's gonna go drop the flowers off. And then Carrie's arm reaches out of it and grabs her, and the girl is in her bed screaming.
Right, and it was that same thing we said where it was just like that trauma. It's everlasting. It's there, you know. Yeah.
So that's the note that they kind of leave you on, and then this even goes a step further by making even her waking up is still horrible. Like, she does like 3 or 4 different wake ups basically. And in each one, the rockabilly guy is there with his drill ready to start
and what's
drilling
beautiful
through
is
people.
I think the song that they go into is his song too. Like, for the credits. So it's like he's still, you know, kind of in the space. He's still taking over the film. And then after, this was the best. I couldn't even believe I ended up reading it because it's at the very end. You know, the warnings when they give like the distribution warnings and copyright warnings. The warning at the end of it says, you'll get severe civil and criminal prosecution, as well as a midnight visit from the driller killer. And I'm like, that's a cherry on top right there. That's amazing that they just threw that in there. And you'd have to go to the very end of the credits
Yeah, I
to
didn't
read
catch
it.
that.
It's a complete just like, oh, it's a little Easter egg, and I thought that was awesome. So yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
I mean, pivoting towards the reductive rating round, this one gets an even higher 4 from me. I like this one
Yeah.
more. This one was even
I'm
pretty
close
close
to
to me.
the
I mean,
5.
it was my first watch on it. I think if I watch it again and I watch it, I feel like if I watch this in a theater with people,
Yeah.
that would be like the moment where I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
this is the slasher at that
Yeah,
point,
for sure.
because it is a really, really good time,
Mm-hmm.
especially just because again. Normally, you would think it's a cop out to just be like, "Is it all real? Is it all?" But it
Normally
doesn't.
that pisses me off.
It doesn't feel that way because it feels like it still takes all of it seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
And even though she is having these nightmares about certain things, it's still really grotesque. Like it's
Yeah.
still impactful. Like even the bit with the burger, I still found that gross. Even though it's like I could sit there and go, yeah, that's probably not what's actually there.
Yeah.
But it almost doesn't matter because it's just trying to capture the feeling of like that is what it feels like to hold that trauma with you, right? So it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's her brain is making it into something tangible, and then it becomes something tangible for like everyone else, obviously, as the film pivots there. And I do think it's just super bizarre that the guy is just he's got good vibes. I'm not gonna lie. Like if he wasn't like, I'd invite him to my party if he wasn't if he would promise not to drill through people's chests,
like,
you know?
I'll have a beer with you, just don't kill anybody.
He's talking about how he can't stop. He's singing about how he can't stop loving the girl. Meanwhile, he pushes her off the
Yeah.
like 4-story building that they're on or whatever. She crashed to the bottom, and that's the part also where he says, "I just can't get no satisfaction." And what's the other song? Oh, he gets "Come On Baby, Light My Fire."
Yeah,
that's what he says when she
right
lights
when
him
she's
on
about
fire.
to set him on fire. Yeah, it's just
it's so cartoony, but in such a like lovely way. Like I was actually thinking about while you were describing it, Barbra Streisand and "What's Up, Doc."
I've never seen that.
I haven't either, actually.
Wait, what? Okay, you two need to immediately watch "What's Up, Doc." It's basically like what if Bugs Bunny but played by Barbra Streisand?
What? I'm definitely down.
It is one of the funniest movies that I've ever seen. And it's because of how precise all of the jokes are and all of the visual gags, and because Barbra Streisand really, really goes for it. And this guy really, really goes for it. And even while he's just like murdering, I'm just like, wow. I'm just enthralled by him.
That's awesome.
What a performance. Bunch of slapstick going on. It's a good time.
It's so good. Yeah, I'm also going to give it the 4 for now, but I could see this baby getting to the 5. Honestly, I couldn't believe just how much fun I was having and where it goes. I was just expecting, Slumber Party Massacre 2 to be the same as the first one, but just maybe with a different kind of killer. I didn't expect all these, bringing the psychology from the first one into this one and all that. So, yeah, it was great. I loved every minute. So, we'll see. Might get to the 5.
For you, Jordan.
5.
Yeah.
Nice.
There we go.
Had to get it at least once.
Well,
Beautiful.
I have this movie at home. I watch it all the time. It's just like a very calming experience for me.
Yeah, oddly enough.
No, I mean, it seems like a great hangout vibe movie. I mean,
Yeah, for real.
I wouldn't have picked it as a birthday film, but it actually does make sense in that context, especially also because she is celebrating a birthday too. The whole reason they go is because it's her birthday, right?
Right, yeah.
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 So that's awesome that you show it to people in that way. That's how I'm going to be showing it to people now too. So
Yeah. I can't wait to show this to people.
All right. Well, I think that will wrap it up for this week. That was Slumber Party Massacre and Slumber Party Massacre 2. Jordan, thanks so much for bringing these films with
Yes,
you.
thank you.
If you've got anything to plug, this is the place to do it.
I don't know if I do. I mean, of course, listen to the Bad Romance podcast. We're like 115 episodes in.
Wow.
So many bad romances, so many. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't, sometimes we're drunk, sometimes we're not. So many different ones. The Drop Dead Fred one is the one that got a write-up for Vulture, so listen to that one, I guess.
For sure.
We also did one on this pretty recent bad rom-com called The Test, which is made by the same guy who made that like LaQuisha movie that everybody was like showing the trailer around for.
Oh God, okay.
The one where he like impersonates a black woman's voice on the radio.
Right.
A white guy does.
Yeah, and then
yes.
and then he gets like he gets hired because of that
Is
somehow.
that new?
Yeah, it's like a new
Yeah.
movie that people were like ripping on when the trailer came out because they were like, "Wow."
It seems pretty risque.
But that guy made a romantic movie about basically testing his fiance for her loyalty with like increasingly ridiculous tests, and that episode really broke us. So.
I love shit like that. Oh my God.
Awesome.
And I mean, you can read
love
my
offensive
writing
stuff.
online. You can find me on Muckrack. You can find me on Twitter at JOURDAYEN, where I'm usually talking shit. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I can recommend following Jourdain on Twitter. She has a lot of great things to say, and some people yell at her for it, so she could use the support
fun.
sometimes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I do stand-up comedy, so if you're in New York
sweet.
City, come see me sometime.
I would love to do that. I hope I can one day, honestly. That's awesome.
All right. Well, for our listeners, we're going to be back in 1 week's time with a bonus episode for you guys over on Patreon. I mean, we're getting a little late to it now, but because of obviously Scorsese, The Irishman, things of this nature, we realize we have not even done a single Scorsese film on the podcast. And Jamie and I...
We did do Taxi Driver.
Oh, we did do Taxi Driver. That's right. Anya brought that on. Like a lot. That was like over a year ago
I think it was
now.
like first 10 episodes or
Wow,
something.
crazy. But Jamie and I had the chance to see Goodfellas on a 35mm print.
Yes, we did.
So because of that, we were like, well, we're going to be watching it anyway. So we're going to do Goodfellas, and then we're also going to do Casino.
Oh, yeah.
To line up with the current chatter
Very
all
excited.
around town about Martin Scorsese's The Irishman.
Which is excellent, by the way.
Which we will have a bonus transmission for patrons coming soon also on that one as well. And in 2 weeks' time, I can't believe we're already here. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
The Christmas.
I'm so excited for this episode.
The Christmas episode. I programmed this one. We are going guestless because I didn't know who would want to talk about these ones because this is a very Josh Christmas double feature. I chose my two personal favorite films to watch around the holidays, and that is Tim Burton's Batman Returns.
That one is like, I get it. And then when you...
And then we're also going to do Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut.
Just the best Christmas movie, you know?
This
Just
is
good,
this
wholesome
is my pairing
entertainment.
of isolated psychosexual madness around the holidays from people who are very horny and very lonely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, both great movies. Can't wait to listen.
So that is what we're going to be talking about for the Christmas episode for you guys free listeners in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
That being said, I think that will wrap it up. Thanks as always for listening, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy, y'all.
Bye.